everyone, welcome to Oulton Park for the season opener of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and a very special season ahead for many a reason really. First of all, it is the 30th season of racing in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It is also a real return to normal, it seems. We've been through the COVID years, the slightly smaller grids, the slightly smaller attendance trackside from the fans. Everything here this weekend, though, getting back to normal. We've got a big grid nearing capacity here for this opening round of the championship, opening 2 rounds of the championship, and we've got a big crowd on hand enjoying, for the time being at least, the spring bank holiday, Easter bank holiday weather, because as you can see, it is rather toasty. We're into the 20s, ambient temperature 21 degrees, track temperature is scorching, getting on for 32 degrees Celsius, the track temperature. That is going to present a challenge for the drivers out there on circuit for sure, but I think the spectators trackside are more than happy to be basking in the sunshine. That perhaps is the only thing that doesn't feel very normal about the Easter weekend. It is nice and hot and sunny, although more changeable weather potentially is on the way as we move further on into the weekend. Qualifying for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship then is just around the corner. The cars will be heading out onto the circuit very shortly for the usual 4 qualifying sessions that will decide the grids for the 2 races that then take place on Bank Holiday Monday. Both of those races over 60 minutes, and really important for the teams to try and get their season off to the best possible start, really. There are lots of points on offer, 25 points for a race win, 50 therefore in total across the 2 races, and it is a brilliant opportunity for teams that have championship aspirations, of which there are many this year, to get out there and really get their season campaign off to the right kind of start. Of course, that all really begins, though, in these qualifying sessions. Oulton Park, a notoriously difficult circuit at which to overtake, so qualifying on the front row of the grid is definitely going to be the way to go. Of course, that is the target for all of the teams, but they know here more than anywhere else, perhaps, just how important that may be. And when you scan down through the entry list that we have for this year's championship, it becomes obvious quite quickly, actually, how difficult it's going to be to predict anything. Who's going to have pole positions, who's going to be winning races, who we'll be seeing on the podium. That's going to be changeable, I think, from round to round. So, Andy McEwen up here in the commentary box. I will be joined all weekend long by David Addison. He'll be up here in the comms box with me tomorrow. But now he's down in the pit lane and he's already found Jules Gounon to have a chat to.
Andy, thank you. Welcome to the pit lane. Welcome to the Intelligent Money British GT Championship Fancy Dress Parade as well. A rare chance for me to get out of a box and go and talk to drivers such as Jules Gounon. Jules, welcome to Oulton Park. What do you reckon to this place?
I reckon that I'm falling in love, and I didn't plan to come live here, but honestly, it's amazing. You know, so many fans, super nice to see them in the paddock. The track is unbelievable. I love it. This is how should track be all the time, and you don't want runoff anymore when you see this place. And Ram is doing a fantastic job here, and also I'm discovering this championship that is really amazing. For a Pro-Am championship, the level is really high. So no, I'm really happy at the moment. Let's see how qualis goes, but yeah, I really love this place.
Let's just ask one more question about the circuit. Can you liken this to anywhere else that you've raced in mainland Europe?
I think it's similar to Brands Hatch, so it's kind of a fast corner with grass on the exit, so you don't want to go any near that. But you know, it's those track where you need to gain confidence through the practice to go to the limit closer and closer, where in many tracks nowadays people just try flat. Okay, it's not flat, I open the steering and I go 15 meters behind the track, which I hate. And everybody hates about this, also John, you know, and then he goes track limit, so you need to stay on track. And here it's like Sebring, it's like Bathurst, it's like those tracks where you respect the place. There's a big history behind the place, you respect the place, you know that there was fantastic drivers driving here, so it's a privilege to drive here. And with our Mercedes it feels really good, especially in practice. Now let's see in quali, it's when it counts, but we are feeling good.
Now, what about driving with Ian Logie this weekend? It's another new co-driver for you. You know the car, the track is new, Ian is new, so in a sense, there's still quite a bit to get used to.
Yeah, we did a lot of tests together, and Ian is fantastic. The first time I drove with him in Portimao, I went in the car, and I look at the delta time, and I'm like, this is wrong. I'm only 4 tenths up, it's not possible on amateur. And then I was like, wow, this guy is really quick. So honestly, nowadays you see amateurs that are amazing, and Yen is not the only one. I saw many guys here. Really, the level of the amateur is incredible. So I really hope Yen can have a good quali. I'm trying to give him my little tips I have from the Mercedes. He knows the car also a lot now. He's driving a lot in GT Cup, British GT. But we have a good team spirit together. We fit really well. So I hope we can have a great half of the season, because Callum is going to do the part I cannot do. But we're going to do everything that Yen can be champion this year.
Jules, good luck for your time behind the wheel in Q2. Just to make the point that because we have 1 hour races this weekend, it is 1 driver, 1 session, and it's the AM that goes first in Q1 therefore. So Ian Loggy, that you've just been hearing about, will be in the car first for Q1. Then there's a break between the 2 sessions, the drivers switch over. So we do Q1, Q2 for GT3, then we do the same again for GT4. And that, Andy, means there's an awful lot to look forward to over the next qualifying session.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Always one of my favourite events of the season, not just because Oulton Park is a phenomenal racetrack, and not just because this is always an exciting event to be at, but because of the fact we get 2 races. I enjoy the longer races, don't get me wrong, but these 60-minute races, they really are sprints, and the drivers and the way in which they attack those races, that really does reflect the sprint nature. And good to see that Jules Gounon there is enjoying his time in the British GT Championship. There's the car that he will be driving alongside Ian Loggy, and that car I think starts as one of the pre-season favourites very much. They were contenders for the championship last season, Ram Racing. Ian Loggy, of course, sharing driving duties last year with Jelmer Berman, and they came up just 9.5 points short in the championship. They finished second behind Dennis Lind and Leo Machitsky, who sadly are not able to defend their title in 2022, and that does rather open the door for some of these other teams and other driver combinations to come in and challenge for the title. And having finished runner-up in the championship the last 2 years, Ram Racing definitely keen to try and go a little bit better this time. This is also a car that I expect to see challenging for more frequent race wins. Got their first win at the end of last year at Donington Park, and I reckon that 77 car is going to be pretty rapid. Just behind it, you can see the Bentley Continental, though, at Assetto Motorsport, and David has got an update on that.
If you want to talk about a home car, talk about Bentley, because of course they're based in Crewe. Crewe is just down the road from Oulton Park, and we have one of the Continental GT3s on the grid. Except we very nearly didn't. Will Tregurtha, one of the 2 drivers, it was only testing yesterday, and it very nearly all went wrong completely.
Yeah, unfortunately we had a bit of a crash yesterday. The car wasn't completely destroyed, but it was more sensible to get a new car. There would have been a question mark over the gearbox and the engine, so we've played it safe. Paddock Motorsport have been brilliant, and they've lent us one of their cars. We got it here last night and set everything up, and now we're ready to go.
So clearly there was a lot of damage. What happened? Was it driver error, or was it something on the circuit that triggered it? What?
Just coming out to Shell Oil, Mark dropped a wheel on the grass, and it was pretty damp out there, so it just drug him off into the wall. And unfortunately, when the grass is pretty wet and you're on slicks, you don't slow down very much. So he actually had quite a big hit on the wall. He's feeling all right. He's a bit bruised, but he soldiers on.
Now, what about this next session? Because Oulton Park is a relatively narrow circuit. I know you split GT3 away from GT4, but it's still going to be very busy out there.
Yeah, it's going to be mega busy. So finding a clear lap's going to be the main priority, and then after that, I don't know. To be honest, we don't really know where our pace is. Our testing's been a bit interrupted, as we can see. So it's a bit of experimentation and a bit of a jump into the unknown, so it's going to be good fun.
Fingers crossed. Will, good luck.
Thank you.
So we've got the cars making their way down to the end of the pit lane. 1 or 2 of the teams still waiting to put wheels on the cars, then they'll join the queue. In fact, behind me, wheels come out for the Bentley and into me. And that means, Andy, the Q1 for the GT3 cars is about to get underway.
Yes, Q1 about to get underway. There is a queue already forming at the end of pit lane as drivers try to get themselves out on track as soon as possible. David touched upon it there. Track position and clear track is going to be at a premium here because of the success story that the championship has become again this season. We've got so many cars out there, 17 GT3 cars, that even with splitting the categories, GT3 and GT4, into their own sessions, it's still going to be difficult to find that clear track. And so getting to the front of the queue, in theory, might be the way to do it. Just a point on Will Tregurtha. Will Tregurtha, multiple record holder in the British GT Championship as part of the youngest drivers brigade. He and Stuart Middleton were the youngest ever combined age champions in the British GT Championship a few years ago. Also the youngest ever race winners. So Will Tregertha, with many a year of GT racing ahead of him, I'm sure, looking to break some more records perhaps this season. Green flag though is in the air. Cars heading out onto the circuit now, onto their out laps for this first qualifying session. So David was talking us through how this all works a few minutes ago. This is qualifying session 1. It sets the grid for the first of the 2 races tomorrow. So in the cars now we have the amateur drivers where that is applicable, so for the Pro-Am pairings, it's the Am drivers that are out there in the cars. Of course there are a mix of Pro-Am and Silver Am combinations in GT3, so it is all amateur drivers taking to the track for this session. That all changes a bit in GT4, where we don't have quite so many Pro or Silver Am driver combos. So drivers using these early laps to get some heat into the tyres shouldn't be too difficult on a day like this, and also, more importantly, to find themselves some track position. On-board footage, as always, of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and we're riding here in the passenger seat of the number 93 car. This is the 2Cs Motorsport entry, the Sky Tempesta Racing car indeed, and this is the Kevin Say and Chris Froggatt car. Now this is a car that we see racing in Europe quite a lot, in GT World Challenge Europe. Kevin Say, though, we saw racing here at Oulton Park a year ago, and really had a bit of a star turn, actually, when he turned up and managed to qualify and finish remarkably well in one of the races here at Oulton Park. So Kevin Say, who had never driven the track until September last year, is certainly got a natural affinity to the place, and he's going to be looking to try and carry that team maybe to a good result. It's Kevin in the car for this session with Chris Froggatt to take over the driving duties in session 2. Results from this first session will set the grid for race 1. The driver that does this session will be the start driver for that first race as well. So going out in this session means that you will be taking the race start in race 1 on Monday, and the second driver will be in after the pit stops, and then they reverse that for race 2. So both drivers going to go and starting and finishing the race. It's going to take a couple of laps, I think, before we start getting any real sort of indication of what the pace is going to be. Drivers still, as you can see, not pushing the limits at all. On board here with local man Michael Igo, one of several drivers who call Oulton Park their home track. And Michael blasts past by commentary position, out onto the pit straight, and let's ride on board with him as he starts a hot lap. Off into Old Hall Corner we go, down a couple of gears. Handily, the camera chooses that moment to break up, so we'll try and jump back on board with him in a few moments' time. Speaking of local drivers, the Nearys, who share the Team ABBA Racing number 8 Mercedes, also call Oulton Park their home track, based just outside of Liverpool. Sam and Richard Neary got their first ever British GT race win last year at Donington Park, and this season most definitely looking to mount a championship challenge. And it all starts here with this really important qualifying session. Neary then, of the Richard variety, out of Druids, down towards Lodge Corner. You can see he is green in the first sector. That means that is the personal best sector that this car has done in the session. Purple for a sector means that it's faster than anyone else has done so far. We'll see a lot of greens and purples early on in the session, of course, but Richard Neary is going to come through and set the benchmark of a 1:36.324. Only he and John Ferguson had set lap times, but then we get another time in from Graham Davidson in the number 2 car. Graham Davidson, who we've seen racing previously in TF Sport Racing Aston Martins, but standing in for a COVID-stricken Simon Watts for this weekend. Davidson goes second quickest, just behind Neary for the time being. Getting plenty of purple sectors coming in though. Morgan Tilbrook's going quickly in the Enduro Motorsport. McLaren and Loggy is out there on his first real attempt. He's got his Ram Racing teammate behind as well, the number 15 car of John Ferguson. And they drop down into the Hislops chicane. Round the right-hander at Knickerbrook. Careful not to hit that tyre stack. Careful not to run too wide over the curbs, as Ian's co-driver Jules Gounon was saying before. It's a very unforgiving circuit, Oulton Park, and you can really see from on board the Mercedes just how fast it is as well. We talk a lot at Oulton, as he has a big wobble through Druids. We talk a lot about the undulation and the narrow, tight confines of the circuit. The high average speed that this layout has doesn't often get mentioned, but it really is a very, very quick circuit, and that's why you need so much commitment to hook up a good lap. Let's see whether that mistake cost Loggy any time. He comes across the line now, and well, I think it may have done, because that's only 7th fastest for him. So that moment that he had through Druids Corner, holding him back slightly. It's been a good day so far for Ram Racing, actually. These two cars have been the two fastest in free practice. The number 15 car setting the fastest lap time of the day, a 33.1. A couple of tenths that was quicker than the number 6 car, but of course it was the pro drivers that set those lap times. So the pro in number 15 being Jamie Caroline, moving up into GT3 this season for the first time. And as we know, Jules Gounon, the pro in the number 6. Balf Motorsport, a familiar name in British GT racing, but not the kind of car, actually, that we've been accustomed to seeing from them. They last raced in the GT3 category with a McLaren a couple of years ago, but now Balf Motorsport with the stunning Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 GT3 that is shared by Sean Balfe, who's in the car now, and very rapid pro Adam Carroll, who's got one of the most impressive CVs, I think, of any of the drivers in the championship. And that car comes through, completes a time that goes fastest so far. So Sean Balfe then sets the new benchmark, the first driver into the 134s. A 134.946 beats Nick Halstead, who is second fastest in the Fox Motorsport McLaren, and Michael Igo's Lamborghini is third. That might be about to change though, because James Cottingham comes through, jumps onto the front row of the grid, second fastest for the number 4 2Cs Motorsport car. James Cottingham had a couple of appearances in last year's championship in a Ram Racing Mercedes, and same machinery but a different team now, and a full season campaign for a man who really impressed, a historic racer generally speaking, and made his GT debut at Brands Hatch last year and was immediately onto the pace, and continuing that here at Oulton. So into the final third of the session then. It's this car fastest at the moment, Sean Balfe. He is on another good lap though, personal best in the first sector, a 10.5 underneath his own pole position time so far, but going quicker again is Morgan Tilbrook, the number 77 car for Enduro Motorsport, purple in the first sector, and that is just a little bit quicker, a couple of hundredths quicker than Balfe is doing at the moment. There goes Michael Igo, there goes Sean Balfe. These are going to be two quick lap times coming in together. The middle sector is quicker again for Balfe, but what is Tilbrook doing? That's going to be the measure here against him, I think. Tilbrook is slower than Balfe in the middle sector. So although the 77 car is going to jump up the order, I think it's going to be a case of moving the goalposts here slightly for the pole-sitting car. Sean Balfe comes through. New fastest time of the session. Yes, a 134.758. And that means he's now 3 tenths to the good over Cottingham in second. Davidson third. Kevin Say is fourth. Nick Halstead fifth. And Michael Igo in 6th. And Alexei Malikin went 7th, and Morgan Tilbrook goes 2nd. So it was a good lap from Tilbrook. Good enough for the front row, but not quite good enough for pole position. 2 tenths at the moment, separating the Audi from the McLaren. Richard Neary now on a fast lap. This looks like being a personal best, but it's not quite on pole position pace, is it? Richard at the moment down in 9th place, but his first sector is a 23.1, which actually is every bit as quick as Balfe and Tilbrook have been doing. So this will definitely be an improvement for Neary. How far up the grid can he get though? 10th fastest at the moment for Team Aber Racing. That is about to change. Neary comes through and goes 2nd place, and only just misses out on provisional pole position. A 134.817, half a tenth off pole for Richard Neary. That is a lot more like it, and he's got time to get at least 1, maybe 2 more laps in the session. So Audi from Mercedes from McLaren, the top 3 at the moment. There may be lots of McLarens in the championship this year, but certainly they're not. It's not a McLaren walkover in this session, is it? We're seeing good variety at the front of the field. The balance performance working well. It's like Michael Igo has perhaps backed out of this lap. Bit of traffic up the road there. Say traffic, that's Nick Halstead, who a while ago was on the front row. He's dropped down to 7th place now. Through will go Igo, and completes what is not a personal best lap, but he backed up to make sure that his final lap of the session is potentially going to see an improvement again. A couple of improvements further back. Redline Racing's Alex Maliakin has gone 6th fastest now in the number 32 Lamborghini. Redline Racing of Porsche Carrera Cup fame, moving into the British GT Championship with a Lamborghini this year. On board with another Lamborghini then. Michael Igo sends it into the dauntingly quick left-hander at Island Bend, where we lost the Assetto Motorsport Bentley yesterday. No such dramas for the WPI Motorsport car though. Michael Igo rounds the right-hander at Shell, and the man who alongside Phil Keane finished 4th in the championship last year, but was a race winner. These two won the 2nd race at Oulton in 2021. One of 2 race victories to go alongside their season opener win at Brands Hatch. They will look to try and improve on this, their final lap. We know it's their final lap because the checkered flag is out. Who's going quickly? Well, Malvern, really, the man on screen, the only man that's improving. A PB in the first sector. And look, he's only half a tenth off pole position. So Alex Malvern, it took him a while to warm to the task, but he's warming to it well now. And as long as he doesn't catch that Balf Audi up the road, ironically, the car he's trying to beat to pole position, could be a good lap, but the middle sector's gone away from him. Half a second off now. And currently Malvern is only 3.5 tenths off pole, so this is now no longer on course to be a personal best lap. Sean Balfe is actually going quicker again though, purple in the middle sector, so the car ahead of this one could be about to further extend the pole position margin. Let's see, the Lamborghini heads for the pit lane, the Audi will cross the line though, and does improve. 134.692, and that is surely now unbeatable as we head into the dying seconds of the session. Few drivers coming through to complete laps, but they are not going to challenge Sean Balfe, who with a 134.692 is going to make it a very strong return to the Intelligent Money British GT Championship for Balfe Motorsport, and their new Audi looking really, really rapid. So waiting for the last couple to come across the line. The booming noise you may have heard in the background was Ian Loggy coming through, but staying in 10th place. And I think he's about the last driver that may have improved. So it looks like it will be the Balfe Audi on pole position for round number 1 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Richard Neary will line up alongside him in the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes, with Morgan Tilbrook, the car on screen, which has generated a lot of interest on social media over the last few weeks since its lead sponsor was announced. And that car, really quick, they won the final round of the championship at Donington last year. Arguably could have had more wins and podiums before that, but a couple of errors, a couple of bits of bad luck earlier in the season prevented them from doing so. But this, a track that both Morgan and his pro co-driver Marcus Clutton know well from their years of racing in the Fun Cup Endurance Championship round here. And this a rather different machine, but clearly they've got an affinity to the track. They are third fastest ahead of the number 2 Team Rocket RJN McLaren. Good to see Team Rocket RJN back in GT3. Of course, that team won the season opener at Oulton 2 years ago in 2020. James Baldwin, one of the drivers that were able to get to the top step of the podium. So, pole position goes the way of Sean Balfe and the Balfe Motorsport Audi. A brilliant time there for pole position in round 1. David Addison is down there.
So great excitement down at Balfe Motorsport with, as Andy was saying, those 2 laps in order to go quickest and then move the goalpost a little bit further. Now, interestingly, of course, they stayed out to do that second one. They've arrived in the pit lane a bit later. Now we do the driver change, but as that is going on, other teams that were in earlier are already at the end of the pit lane ready to go. So Sean Balfe gets out. We'll grab Sean in a moment. Adam Carroll is going to take over. Now, Adam has raced and won championships in Ferraris. Of course, he was a star in the A1GP single-seater championship. He raced in the DTM for a time. Now the car will also not only have a driver change, it'll have a tyre change as well. It's a new Pirelli tyre for this year, and it's the same tyre that goes on the GT3 and GT4 cars. So the tyre the same, and driver change goes on. So Adam Carroll will clamber into the car, and let us see if we can grab Sean Balfe, because he's in the pit box. Quick word with the team. And in a moment, once he's finished talking to the team, then we might be able to grab a word. The tyres for the car whistle through the garage, so the tyre change about to take place. And as you can see, the car's queuing up at the end of the pit lane. Now, let's see, once he's got his breath back, if we can grab a word with Sean, because that was quite a session. 2 absolutely demon laps to go to the top of the times. Well done.
Should we have a drink?
You want everything.
So, I mean, we've got a great crew, really great crew. So the dashboard wasn't working, so I was driving pretty much blind, and that's testament to how much work goes in back room, believing in the car, having a great set of guys around me, great driver coach. Can't tell you what lap time I've done, couldn't tell you what gear I was in. But I knew what I needed to do because it had been drilled into me for such a long 48 hours. And I can have a beer tonight because we're not driving tomorrow, so it's all good.
Sean, well done. Go and have more of this bizarre pink liquid. It seems to do you good. Right, Andy, back to you.
Yes, well, Sean Balfe may not know what lap time he got out of that session, but we do. And as David said, he had 2 laps in the end that were good enough for pole. The second one, though, was a 1:34.692. Very impressive pace indeed. That car then will line up on pole for race 1 on Monday, alongside the team ABBA Mercedes of Richard Neary. Morgan Tilbrook, 3rd fastest for Enduro Motorsport, and then 4th quickest, Graham Davidson, this last-minute call into the championship for the Rocket RJN car. Then it was James Cottingham 5th, and Alex Maliak in 6th, Kevin Say 7th ahead of Nick Halstead, whilst Michael Igo and Ian Logie are a lot further back than you might expect. 2 of the championship frontrunners last year, 9th and 10th on the grid for race 1. Kelvin Fletcher, winner here a year ago, is 11th in a new car alongside Adam Ballon, who had an off in testing yesterday. John Ferguson, Mia Fluitt and Mark Sansom rounded out the top 15 drivers in qualifying session number 1 here at Oulton Park. So that is the first session complete then. Already we've got cars out on circuit for qualifying session number 2. So these are the same cars that we've just seen, but they are different drivers in the cars. These are the pro drivers now. This is where we will see some of the quickest lap times of the day. Now, for reference, the qualifying lap record here at Oulton Park is a pretty rapid one, as you'd expect for GT3. It was set back in 2018 by who other than Phil Keane in a Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, and it was a 1:32.869. So 1:32.869 is the lap record pace. Now, the fastest lap time that we've seen so far this weekend was a 33.129. So a 33.1 is obviously about 3/10 or so off the lap record pace, but that was in free practice. We can always expect the teams to find a little bit more pace once we get into the qualifying session. So, same story, 10 minutes in which to get a lap time in. Drivers starting to get up to speed. You'd expect the pros to be able to get up to that ultimate pace a bit quicker maybe than some of the AMs. They've just got that bit more experience and that bit more confidence on cold tyres. Sam Neary, certainly not a driver lacking in confidence. The youngster who's been a bit of a phenomenon in British GT circles over the last couple of years, looking to try and start his title challenge off well. And given the fact that this car's going to be starting deep in the field for race 1, all the more important that Sam gets a good lap time out of it here. A 34.1 is a good sighter, but we'd expect these drivers to be really low in the 1:33s, really. That's where we should be seeing the fastest time, maybe even a high 32. This is the man who holds the qualifying lap record, Phil Keane. Not in a Barwell Lamborghini these days, but the WPI car that he shared with Michael Igo for a full season last year. First time they'd paired up together. They seem to be getting on really well. And Phil Keane loves this Oulton Park circuit. In fact, 2021 broke a 3-year stint of Phil Keane pole positions. Every qualifying session he'd done for the 3 years before that, he'd stuck it on pole here at Oulton, and that is a good way to go about continuing that, because he does a 33.3, which is immediately beaten actually by Ewan Hankey. So Ewan Hankey in the number 76 car, which is the 7T6 team name that the McLaren of Ewan Hankey and Mia Fluitt. You're not going to forget that one in a hurry, are you? And they have gone, or had gone fastest already, though. We're getting times coming in that are quicker than that, and a 33.0 now for Sandy Mitchell is the fastest lap we've had all day. Sean Balfe, it's no longer Sean Balfe in this car, is it? This is now going to be Adam Carroll in the number 22 Audi, is going faster still. So we could be troubling that lap record here. Phil Keane's 1:32.869 could be under some threat, because here comes Adam Carroll across the start-finish line, registers a lap time of a 32.799, a new qualifying lap record in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship here at Oulton Park, and it's the car that will start on pole position for race 1 that already is setting the pace in qualifying session number 2. They have really got this mid-engined Audi working well. This circuit always has favoured the mid-engined cars, and that seems to be the case again today, certainly as far as the Audi's concerned, and that is going to take some beating. This is the driver who's closest to doing that, and look, in the first sector, only 2,000 slower than the Audi. So these new Pirelli tyres that David mentioned are perhaps yielding a bit more speed early on, but what their durability is going to be like in the races on Monday, we shall have to wait and see. Sandy was actually faster than Adam Carroll in the first sector, but Adam's going quicker again now, so these two trading sector times at the moment. Carroll's dropped another couple of tenths in the middle sector. Sandy Mitchell has dropped another couple of tenths in the middle sector, and that may mean that this is only going to be a marginal improvement. Let's see, his previous time was a 33.0. He's into the 32s, and actually, with a really good final sector look, ends up just 64 thousandths of a second off pole position. So, Carroll from Mitchell, Audi from Lamborghini, from McLaren's Ewan Hankey in third. Oh, very, very wriggly there through Cascades Corner for Sandy Mitchell. And the ride on board with the Lamborghini. None of them are faster now, though, because Jules Gounon, on, I believe, his first appearance at Oulton Park, has done a 32.3. That's outrageous pace from the Mercedes driver. And Jules Gounon in the Ram Racing number 6 car is 4/10 up the road now from the previous pole position time. There he is, down the Lakeside straight at 32.3. Doesn't just beat the qualifying lap record, it annihilates it. That is a phenomenal performance. And the Mercedes driver ain't done yet, because he is really rocking his way through the left-hander at Island Bend, the car bouncing around on the suspension as he tries to get the maximum performance from a car that we know is going to be a contender all season long. As I said, though, Ian Loggy could only qualify this car mid-grid for the first race, so it's important that Gounon is able to get up there on the front row. Looks very likely now, doesn't it? 4/10 to the good. I know I said that Adam Carroll's lap time was going to be tough to beat, but that one I think could be near impossible. We shall see, though. Drivers have surprised me before in these qualifying sessions. We're seeing a bit of a plateau in speed now, though. It's always interesting to me. You watch the AM session, and the fastest times tend to come right at the end of it. In the pro session, they tend to be in the first few laps, although Gounon is perhaps going to make a liar of me here, because he's quicker again in the middle sector than he had been. It's only fractional, 17/1000ths of a second, but Jules comes out of Lodge, doesn't run too wide over the curbs, blasts underneath the pedestrian bridge, comes out over the grid hatchins. Is it an improvement? No, not quite. A 32.434 is only half a tenth off his previous best lap, and again would be more than good enough for pole position. So it's Gounon fastest, Carroll second, Mitchell third, Ewan Hankey fourth, Marcus Glutton in the pits already, as Jules Gounon is abusing the suspension on that Ram Racing Mercedes. Really rattles over the curbs through Cascades, almost looked like he was losing control, but we should know better than to think that of Jules Gounon. He knows what he's doing. Very, very highly regarded GT driver is Jules, former Bentley driver, of course, and with the demise of their factory programme now, making the switch to Ram Racing here in British GT for this year in the Mercedes. Now, speaking of Mercedes, this is the Sky Tempesta racing car. Chris Froggatt, slowest in the session at the moment, on a 1:34, well, it was a 34.2, it's now a 34.0, and only 2/10 off the pace. So Froggatt stays at the back of the field. Now, from one Mercedes to another, this is a replay of the number 4 car. It's in the hands of, oh dear, well, it's having a big spin coming out of the Britain chicane is what it's doing. It's in the hands of Lewis Williamson, lucky not to make the barriers there, just took a bit too much curb through the right-hand part of the Britain chicane, and it spat the car sideways. He over-corrected it, and then was able to execute in the end a pretty nifty 360 and get back in the right direction. So drivers really are pushing to and perhaps beyond the limits here slightly. Still seeing a few improvements, actually. James Dorlin in the number 32 Redline Racing Lamborghini has just improved into 8th position for him. Chris Froggatt going quicker again as well. And with a 22.8, only a couple of tenths off the outright fastest first sector. The Sky Tempesta racing car with 2C's Racing. Comes out of Knickerbrook. Asks for the traction up the hill. Now, Jamie Caroline, purple in the first sector whilst we're watching this. Jamie Caroline coming on strong at the end of the session in the other Ram Racing Mercedes, the number 15 car that he shares with John Ferguson. Ferguson was rapid in his session, and Jamie Caroline could be about to improve upon 7th place in this session. He will get to the line long after Chris Froggatt, though, because Froggatt's already at the final corner, and Jamie Caroline only in the middle sector. So we'll find him in a moment or two. Here comes the 93 car across the line. This should be another improvement. Does it get him out of last place? No, and actually the final, in fact it was the middle sector where he lost some time there, and a big rattle over the curbs at Old Hall won't help the start of this lap either. Checkered flag is now out, but Froggatt had not seen the checkered flag yet, so he's free to complete another lap time. That lap for Jamie Caroline, by the way, is going nowhere, unfortunately. He's backed off in the middle sector, and you can see the white and blue Mercedes coming through very slowly. So having got all excited about his rapid first sector, it all went wrong in the middle part of the lap. So 7th will be as good as it gets for Caroline. But he can take some solace from the fact that he could have, and maybe should have, gone quicker than that. Everyone's slowing down now. We're not going to get many drivers going for another lap, I don't think. You can see already, look, Adam Carroll in the pit lane. Well, what a brilliant day for Balfe Motorsport. It's not quite the double pole position, which has not been done for quite some time. 2017 was the last time we had the same car on pole position for both races at Oulton Park. It was Team Parker Racing's Bentley of Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris who did it on that occasion. But Malvern Motorsport come very close to doing that. A pole for race 1 and second place on the grid for the second race of the day. Lewis Williamson looks like he's going to complete this lap. How are the sectors looking? Nothing special, but it might be a small improvement. He is 9th at the moment, and that's where he stays. Doesn't improve on the final lap in the end. So 1 or 2 others going to come through. I think the number 2 car is going to complete a lap. That's James Kell in his first ever race weekend in the GT3 car. And in fact, he does bail for the pit lane in the end. So that is it then. Balf Motorsport, fastest in session 1, second fastest in session 2. It is Ram Racing's number 6 Mercedes of Jules Gounon who breaks, provisionally at least, the qualifying lap record for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. A record that has stood for a few years, 2018, Phil Keane. Who managed to set that lap time, which has been absolutely annihilated to the tune of about half a second there by the very, very rapid Jules Gounon. So the cars, GT3 cars this is, are wheeled back into their pit garages. We're not done with the on-track action. GT4 qualifying still to come. This, though, is how they rounded out qualifying 2, and this will be therefore provisionally the grid for the second race on Bank Holiday Monday. Jules Gounon for Ram Racing fastest, ahead of Adam Carroll in the Balf Motorsport Audi alongside. Sandy Mitchell is 3rd in the car that went off in testing yesterday, with Ewan Hankey, a good effort that for the Pro-Am GT4 champion from a few years ago in the 76 car. Enduro Motorsport and WPI Motorsport will make up row 3 ahead of the number 15 Ram car, which was improving at the end there, and Redline Racing's Lamborghini. 2Cs Motorsport's number 4 car is 9th alongside the Greystone GT car. That's the Stuart and Lewis Proctor car that rounds out the top 10. Assetto Motorsport in their loaned Bentley that was on pole position here a year ago for Paddock Motorsport. They're 11th ahead of Team ABBA Racing. Slightly disappointing qualifying session that for Team ABBA, you would say. Fox Motorsport, Paddock Motorsport with their new McLaren 720S are 14th ahead of Team Parker Racing's Porsche. So, excellent qualifying session for Jules Gounon there, and his co-driver Ian Loggy is down in the pit lane with David Addison.
So it's Mercedes number 6 at the top of the times at the end of that second session. Ian Loggy must be delighted with the way that Jules went there.
Yeah, he done an amazing job. That was fantastic. Really first class. He's been close to the top the whole free practice 1, 2. I tested yesterday, etc. He's done an amazing job, and every time we need a little bit more, it goes that little bit quicker. So yeah, he's done a great job. So I'm ecstatic in one hand and really disappointed for the performance I put in myself. And the other, again, I expected to be at the front, but on the first lap I lost the rear, and the Druids ran wide, got a lot of marbles, and then I never shook the pickup off and just never had the pace after that. So yeah, ups and downs of motorsport, I suppose.
I'm fascinated how this partnership has come about. So do you as a customer say to Jules, come and drive with me, or do you say to Mercedes, I really want to win this championship this year, who do you recommend, who can I have? How does it all fit together?
There's a little bit of both there. So my friend knows Jules and knows his father from the past, so he put a little bit of leverage on. Jules went to Mercedes, asked them if he could do it. They were delighted for us to have him. We've not got him the whole season, but we've got him for the majority of it. So yeah, he's done a totally amazing job.
Ian, thanks very much. Good luck for Monday. 2 races, of course, for Jules and Ian to share the car. Just one quick thing to tidy up on GT3. We didn't have the number 91 BMW in that session, I'm afraid to say. Betty Chen went off the road earlier, did some damage. Angus Fender, therefore, is a spectator for the moment. Now, Century Motorsport, the team that runs it, the team boss, Nathan Freak, so keen is he that the car is on track on Monday. He's currently on his way to Calais in order to get some bits. You could argue it's a good job they don't race until Monday, because he should be back in time. But fingers crossed that car should, Andy, be on the grid on Monday.
Yeah, I hope so, David. I was watching that car trackside yesterday. It looks the business. It sounds amazing as well, so it would be a shame not to have that BMW on track. Plenty of BMWs on track now, though, because the GT4 sessions are underway. Same format, 10 minutes per session, 2 sessions. One that sets the grid for race 1 and one that sets the grid for race number 2. So we can expect to see another really competitive session here. The car on screen is certainly one of the pre-race and pre-season favourites, the number 27 Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT4 of Newbridge Motorsport, an unchanged driver lineup, Darren Turner and Matt Topham. A changed livery though, gone is Scully, as it was affectionately known, the red and black livery from last year, and Newbridge's blue and black Aston Martin, looking just as rapid. I mean, they've been absolutely flying in the practice sessions. Didn't actually set the fastest GT4 lap time though. It was the R Racing Aston Martin that was fastest when you combine the two practice times, two free practice sessions earlier on today. So Matt Topham and Darren Turner, who only completed a part season last year, they were actually contenders for the overall GT4 championship. They ended up finishing 4th after a DNF at Donington Park, but they did win the Pro-Am championship together, and they are one of only 3 Pro-Am entries entered this weekend in GT4, the others being Inspire Racing's car of Gareth Howell and Richard Marsh, and the Team Brit car of Bobby Tripoli and Aaron Morgan. So most of the cars in GT4 this season are silver driver combos, which means it doesn't really matter which driver goes first. They can put whichever one they want in for each session, and that driver will be the one that starts the accorded race for them. So Matt Topham, though, as an AM in a Pro-Am partnership, is the driver that has to come out in qualifying 1. He's not particularly pushing to the limit on this lap by the looks of it, so we'd expect to see his next lap being one that really does show us their benchmark pace. Now, having seen a lap record go in GT3, I wonder whether we might get the double here. The GT4 lap record, set back in 2019 by Seb Prio, was a 142.384. 42.384. The fastest time we've had so far is a 42.497, so we've been knocking on the door. That's actually closer to the lap record pace in practice than we'd seen from GT3. So let's wait and see. Certainly this could be a car in the second session in the hands of Darren Turner that could challenge for that. Getting the early times in, 43.2 at the moment, the fastest time we've seen from the number 90 Century Motorsport BMW of Jack Brown. Benji Hetherington, welcome return to the championship for Benji Hetherington. Then the Veluga Racing Porsche makes its way down into Lodge Corner. One of a couple of these Porsche 718 Cayman GT4s that we've got racing. The other one is the Team Parker example of Seb Hopkins and Jamie Oulton doubling up their Porsche programme this season. Team Parker Racing, one in GT3, one in GT4. But it's the Veluga car that goes second fastest there. Benji Hetherington just 8/100ths off pole. Now, we've seen what GT3 Audis could do. The GT4 example is doing pretty well too, because Richard Williams here in the Stella Motorsport Audi is on course to set the first of the really quick times here, I think. Purple in the first sector, even more purple in the second sector, nearly 6/10ths up on the current fastest time set by Jack Brown. So the number 42 car, I think, could be about to rocket to the top of the timing screens. The Audi was not without its mechanical dramas, I think it's fair to say, last season, but when it ran, it looked quick. Got itself a podium at Silverstone, another podium here at Oulton Park. They finished 3rd in the first of the races at Oulton in 2021. They're looking now to move further up that podium, and that's a good way to start. A 42.395 is not quite a new lap record, because it's a 384 they're aiming for. So Richard Williams not quite there, but that is a pretty strong effort. That's really the first properly fast time we've seen, nearly 9/10ths faster than anyone else for the time being. Has to negotiate one of the M4s there. That's the number 14, which is not a BMW M4, it is an Ecris M4, because it was built before BMW started their GT4 programme. And so it goes by the name of an Ecris, which I admit is a fact I did not know until this weekend. But it essentially is the same, very similar at least to the BMWs. And that number 14 car currently sitting down in 12th place. Richard Marsh at the wheel. That's an ex-British Touring Car Championship duo, actually. Richard Marsh and Gareth Howell, both raced in the British Touring Cars getting on for, if not over, 2 decades ago now. They won't thank me for reminding everyone of that. But both very experienced drivers, that's for sure. The Audi then drops down through the Hislop chicane up at Shell. This is the other of those Porsches, the Team Parker car. And it should be Seb Hopkins. No, it's not Seb Hopkins, it is Jamie Oulton in the car this time. This is another silver class car. So again, they can kind of pick and choose with which driver goes in which session. So Jamie Oulton, who's raced extensively and with much success in Ginetta one-make racing in the past, makes the shift to a different kind of GT4 car now in the Porsche Cayman, 718 Cayman. And it's 2/10ths off pole through the first sector, but if you can keep that up, that would be good enough for the front row. the moment, no one can get anywhere near Richard Williams' time. Benji Hetherington is the closest, but 6.5 tenths off. You can see from the graphic down the left-hand side of the screen, a green line means personal best in that sector. Purple means better than anyone, and orange means it's not an improvement. So seeing a good amount of green towards the bottom half of the table, but not so much at the front. I think a lot of the quick drivers, or the quickest at the moment, have had the best of their tyres. Perhaps we may see some other improvements later on. Indeed, into the pit lane comes Tom Rawlings' BMW. Jamie Oulton across the line goes third, 143.049, 6.5 tenths off pole. Very rare, actually, that 6.5 tenths off pole would put you that far up the order. Bit of debris I spotted there underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge on the way into Lodge Corner. Hopefully the Team Brit McLaren avoided it. The Team Brit car being driven by Aaron Morgan, paraplegic driver. This is the first ever all-disabled driver lineup in the British GT Championship. And he and Bobby Trundley, who share the car, are, I expect, going to learn an awful lot as the year goes on. It's not debris, is it? I think it's a sticker or a bit of a banner or flag or something that's on the track. Nothing really to worry about. It's not anything that's going to damage a car. You wouldn't want to pick it up over a radiator opening though. Lead to overheating in this weather pretty quickly. Had an improvement for the R-Racing car of Jamie Day. That's the car that set the fastest time so far in practice, but only 6th fastest right now. But here is the Aaron Morgan car. Great to have Team Brit on board. They've been steadily increasing their GT racing programme in other championships in recent years, but finally in 2022 they make the big step up into the British GT Championship, and there's no doubt about it, it's a steep uphill learning curve. But this McLaren has been homologated specifically so that Aaron can use hand controls to pilot it around the circuits. Something that he is well versed in doing, not just with Team Brit, but having also raced his own car in the BMW Compact Cup, which has supported British GT a few times in recent years. Oops, a bit of a moment there out of Knickerbrook, but gathers it together. Is he on an improvement this time? He is not at the moment. Now, this is a sensible call, I think, for Stella Motorsport. It's highly unlikely that Richard Williams is going to beat his time. It's also highly unlikely that anyone else is going to beat it. So pit the car, get the tyre change done, get the driver change done, and then you're ready and raring to go for qualifying session 2. So with, I think, about 2 minutes left on the clock, Richard Williams brought the car in, and he's already in the garage, fist pumping and congratulating the team. The team really should be congratulating him, though. That was a superb effort, a stellar effort, you could say, for the Stella Motorsport squad. And Richard Williams now hands the car over to Senan Fielding, silver drivers, both of them. And they are looking particularly strong. Not quite the lap record in qualifying, but very, very close to it. And Richard Williams now can have a word with David.
Richard Williams, big smile on your face. Where are we doing for the flag? Just about there, aren't you? That was a great lap.
Well, I actually did 2 laps at the same time, which I'm actually really, that's why I'm smiling. But yeah, well, I mean, just really kind of surprised really at the speed that we've just unlocked there, because it's been, as you know, it's kind of quite a late call to come and race here, and yesterday, first time in the car, and it's really, really hard to kind of get back in the groove again, but yeah, to deliver that, I'm really pleased.
What's been unlocked, if you like, from last season? Because this car's always had potential. Now it seems to have the speed as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to say, really, and I can't really comment after one day in the car. But I mean, you know, I think it's just the team have become very familiar with the car now. We've had it for a couple of years, so we know kind of roughly where we need to be to get it in the sweet spot. I think we just proved it there.
What you also proved, though, is that GT4 is going to be very competitive again this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've only got to look down the grid and see the names of the drivers that are here, particularly the young guys, and like, I'm not getting any younger either, but, you know, there's some real talent throughout the whole field, and I think that's just going to be a really exciting year ahead for everybody, I think, just to see what everyone can deliver. But, you know, first round, you know, we'll see what Senan can do now. I'm sure he'll do a good job, but yeah, very happy.
Richard, great job, well done.
Thanks a lot.
Great job indeed. That is a very quick lap time from the Stella Motorsport Audi driver, and it looks like it is going to be good enough for pole position by 6.5 tenths of a second. Session coming to a close, cars heading back to the pit lane, including the sole Ginetta on the grid. Joe Wheeler and Freddie Tomlinson sharing that car. The 56 car, it was Joe Wheeler in the car this time around. Now, Assetto Motorsport, of course, ran this car last year for the Mark Sansom in particular. And Mark Sansom, moving up into GT3, leaves this car open for Joe Wheeler, who is the son of the famous Peter Wheeler of TVR fame, and of course Freddie Tomlinson. Tomlinson name synonymous with Ginetta for fairly obvious reasons. And Freddie Tomlinson, who's actually, I think he started off racing in Ginetta Juniors a few years ago. And good to see Freddie out in the Assetto Ginetta here at Oulton in British GT, and I'm sure his dad is watching on with some pride actually to see his son representing his company, Ginetta, in the British GT Championship. So great to have that car out there. Freddie's going to be out in the car next. It was Joe Wheeler out that time around. So this then provisionally is how qualifying 1 for GT4 rounds out. This will be the grid for race 1 then. Richard Williams almost underneath the qualifying lap record, but 6.5 tenths quicker than anybody else. Benji Hetherington though just 1/1000th quicker than Jamie Oulton to pip him to second place. The two Porsches there both looking strong. Tom Edgar is one of the 2 new drivers in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Supra, and that lines up 4th on the grid ahead of Matt Topham, the top Pro-Am car, so the fastest AM driver there amongst a sea of silvers. That's a good effort, that, from Topham, 5th fastest. Jack Brown is 6th for Century Motorsports, 7th then for Day. Excuse me, 8th place then for Tom Rawlings. 9th is the Academy Ford Mustang, and that car was driven in that first session. The Ford Mustang by Marco Signoretti, Matt Cowley to take over after. Then it was the Assetto Motorsport Ginetta, Paddock Motorsports GT4 McLaren, Team Brit McLaren was 12th, and Inspire Racing 13th place. So that is how the 13 GT4 cars round out. I think there was an issue there for Inspire Racing, wasn't there? Because that Ecris GT4 did not set that many lap times. Right, we've just seen Freddie Tomlinson's car out on track. Freddie about to head out in the Ginetta, and his father Lawrence is, I'd imagine, David, a rather nervous man in the pits.
Lawrence Tomlinson, are you standing here as the owner of Ginetta, or as a very proud dad, or as a nervous dad?
Just as a dad, really. Yeah. No, it's nice to be here in all 3 hats. So we've been running the Ginetta Juniors for like 17 years, so it's like I've had my children in that for 17 years, so not too nervous, no.
Now, Freddie, as a driver, has come on over the last few seasons. I mean, he's come from the school of hard knocks, which is the Ginetta Junior Championship, but this is quite a step up.
It is a step up, and it's fantastic to see throughout the GT4 grid loads of Ginetta Juniors. So this year is going to be some extremely competitive and tough racing on the machinery and on the tracks. It's going to be great.
It's also nice and nostalgic. You know, you've got your son in this, and you own a British sports car. There's Joe, his late father Peter owned TVR, which you started racing in, or at least you raced a lot of, didn't you? Yeah,
I feel like we're all going around full circle. It's fantastic. We've got the purple on the car for TVR and the orange for Ginetta, so that was Vicky's idea. So, yeah, it's good to see, and we've got Johnny Kane doing some driver coaching, so looking after them in the.
Whose idea was this to put the two together?
It just happened, really, because we ended up in Ginetta Juniors at the same time, and Freddie and Joe got on, and there's a natural progression for them both to do GT racing rather than single-seaters, and Mike Simpson's looking after the driver coaching here at track, so yeah, it's just a very sensible way to go forward.
Fantastic. We'll let you go and study the timing screens now. Lawrence Tomlinson, thanks very much.
That's great. I didn't know that about the livery. That's really cool. I didn't know that story, the orange and purple on that Ginetta G56. Freddie Tomlinson, I noticed getting into the car there. He's not actually left the garage yet, so he's going to be one of the stragglers. The first car in the queue was that Ecris M4 GT4, which is now in the hands of Gareth Howell. And for some reason, Richard Marsh did not complete that many laps in it and was well off the pace in session 1, but they clearly feel they've got the car sorted because they've sent Gareth out straight away. Also, interestingly, remember how I said Richard Williams had brought this Audi for Stella Motorsport in nice and early so that they could get Sen and Fielding out nice and early in the session? Well, that's not what's happened, because Sen still sat in the garage whilst the bulk of the field are halfway around their outlap. We shall see if that's a problem or whether that's a tactic that they've used to try and get him some clean air. Anyway, 10 minutes, the final 10-minute qualifying session of the afternoon underway. For the second race, this will set the grid, and it's the pros in the 3 Pro-Am GT4 cars, and then the quicker of the silver drivers generally, however the team decides that are out in the silver driver combos. So some new names and new faces to get used to here, but the 2 cars I'm particularly interested in, and really are the 2 Aston Martins actually, are Racing's car of Jamie Day, which is the fastest car so far today in practice, and of course the always rapid Darren Turner, former winner of the Le Mans 24-hour race in the GT classes in the Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin number 27. Those two are definitely going to be quick. So should Ross Wiley, who's had an eventful few months. He is expecting first child and has also engaged now to mother of that child, and is really beaming from ear to ear when I saw him in the paddock yesterday. And Ross Wiley is in the car now and looking to try and get the Beluga car at the front of the field. Now, I believe David Anderson in the pit lane has some news for us. We were asking David why the Stella Motorsport Audi, which was early back to the pits, was late back out. What can you tell us?
Andy, the master plan was just trying to find a gap in traffic, and actually they did that apparently for Q1 as well. It worked for Richard, so they thought they'd do it again for Sennan. So it purely was to let the traffic go, try and find a gap, some clear track space, which is absolutely crucial around here. Let's see if the plan works. OK, thank you, David. That's good to know. So nothing sinister, no problems for the Audi. I guess if they're confident that they can get the lap time out in 2 or 3 laps, they don't need the whole 10 minutes, do they? It just puts more mileage on the Pirelli rubber, which they need to look after, because they'll be using these tyres again in the races on Monday. So perhaps that is going to be the winning strategy. We shall see. Right then, lap times will be coming in very shortly. I'm quite confident now that we're going to get this new lap record, because we came so close in the first session, and typically the second session is the quicker of the two. So remember, it's a 42.384 we're aiming for. We got a 3.95 out of Richard Williams in the first session, and Ross Wiley looks like he's going to be one of the first drivers to set the benchmark time in this session. In fact, no, it's going to be this car, isn't it? Will Burns, the number 90 BMW, and Will Burns, who, along with Gus Burton, utterly dominated the GT4 category last year, and new livery on that car now. And of course, the number 90 car that he shares now with Jack Brown was rapid in the earlier session. Now that time was a 42.137. Oh, well, there we go. We've done it. Just like that. New lap record in qualifying for GT4, and it's Will Burns, a 42.137. 2.5 tenths quicker than Seb Prio did a couple of years ago. So these new Pirelli tyres clearly are working well in qualifying. Does that mean maybe slightly softer compound, that the teams are going to have to manage that in the races on Monday? Could be fascinating if they do. Sennan Fielding then over the top of Clay Hill, past the water tower, into the double apex right-hander at Druid. So this car late on parade, but we know now that that was always the plan. And Sennan Fielding in that number 42 car, looking to perhaps get another Audi pole position for the day. They're already starting on pole position in both classes, our Audis, both GT3 and GT4 for race 1. Now, what can he do in race number 2? Through comes Fielding, second fastest, just under 0.3 of a second off the pole position time then. And Fielding makes his way out of Old Hall Corner. Now, on board with Darren Turner. What is Darren doing in the sectors? Purple in the first sector by only a 1/10.5. That's a pretty decent chunk. Now, what's the middle sector going to be like? This is perhaps where the mid-engined cars have a slight advantage. The change of direction through Britain's and then Hislop chicane out of Knickerbrook. Let's see whether Darren loses out. Well, he's already lost his purple first sector because Sennan Fielding's going quicker than him on his subsequent lap. But look at that, in the middle sector, another big chunk taken by Darren Turner. So Turner might be about to go pole, but Sennan Fielding is then going to try and get it straight back off him. Out of Druids, underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge, down to Lodge Corner, where there is a big knot of traffic, but thankfully Darren is not going to catch it before the end of the lap. Darren Turner works his way out of the final right-hander, underneath the bridge, over Deer Leap and across the start-finish line. The Newbridge car took pole position in both races here a year ago, and it's on provisional pole for race number 2. Darren Turner, a 141.957, is, needless to say, another new qualifying lap record. But what can Fielding do? Fielding was quicker than him in the first sector. We haven't had a middle sector yet for the Audi. It comes through and it's 0.4 slower. Quite a big chunk slower. It's a personal best for the Audi, but it is 0.4 off the middle sector that Darren Turner just did. You know how I said that the Aston Martin's one weakness might be the middle sector? What do I know? Because the Audi cannot keep up with Darren Turner through that middle part of the lap. It will take a pretty sensational final sector here to get pole position, but he could get back on the front row. Will Burns has gone second, didn't spot that, so the BMW that won last year's championship is second fastest. Can Sennan Fielding change that? No, not quite, but the top 3 covered by less than a 1/10 of a second. Turner, Burns and Fielding, 0.091 between the 3 of them.
So there is Will Burns then, who's just jumped onto the front row of the grid. And Will Burns last year, alongside Gus Burton, won 3 of the races, but was only ever off the podium twice, and it included a second and a first here at Oulton Park that ultimately wrapped up the GT4 Championship for Will and the Century Motorsport team with a race to spare, and he's actually going to dive into the pit lane now, so no further improvements for Will Burns. He clearly feels that's as good as it will get. Bit of a shame because he only needed a 1/10 of a second to get pole, but that last 1/10 can sometimes be the hardest 1/10 to find, and it's not going to happen for Will in this session. So Aston Martin, BMW, Audi, the top 3. 4th quickest is the Toyota then of Mitchell, and up to 5th has just gone number 65, Team Parker Racing's Porsche. So that's 5 different marks in the top 5 positions on the grid. Through goes the McLaren there of Bobby Trundley, the Team Brit car that stays in 12th place. Here is Freddie Tomlinson. Tomlinson 10th fastest at the moment, and on a personal best lap here, needs to find nearly 7/10 though to move ahead of Matt Cowley's Ford Mustang, which does not seem to be all that rapid in this session for whatever reason. Matt Cowley could be about to lose 9th place here, I reckon. Tomlinson comes through and yeah, does go 9th ahead of Cowley. So that'll please Lawrence, moving up a place, and with time to go as well. 2 more laps in the bag. Yes, I think so. Yeah, lapping in the 140s, aren't they? So he's got time for 2 more goes here. Ginetta always have gone well here at Oulton Park. Over the last 5 years in the GT4 category, Ginetta have 2 pole positions from the last 10 qualifying sessions. Not as many as Aston Martin. They top the GT4 qualifying tree over recent years, but that Ginetta moves up at least 1 more position on the grid. Now, Seb Hopkins in the Team Parker Racing Porsche improved to 5th on his previous lap, got himself ahead of the 23 R racing car of, it's still showing Josh Miller, but I think it was showing Josh Miller in the previous session. No, it wasn't, I'm telling a lie, it was Jamie Day in the previous session, so Miller 6th fastest in this one, behind this car now of Hopkins, who's going quicker again this time. About 7/10 off pole right now. That would potentially move him onto the second row of the grid. Let's see. Needs a good final sector. Hopkins comes through and does register a decent final sector, but not enough to improve his position. Anyway, new personal best lap time, but he stays in 5th place. So he goes on to what will be his final lap of the session. We've got 3 cars in the pits. The Burns BMW, the Mitchell Toyota, and we did have a 3rd car in, but the Chris Salkeld BMW has just gone back on track, which is odd because it doesn't have time to complete an outlap and do another lap in the session. Freddie Tomlinson has time for 1 more, and he might need it because that was dangerously close to exceeding track limits at Lodge Corner. He stays in 9th place, personal best in the 1st sector, but that little mistake at Lodge perhaps did not help him improve again at the end. He's inch perfect out of Old Hall though. The Luger number 51 car, Ross Wiley, 8th position at the moment, 2.5 off pole. Nothing doing really in the 1st sector. Matt Cowley has set a personal best sector 1 though. So Matt Cowley in the Academy Ford Mustang could be about to set a new personal best lap time. Bobby Trundley also, they're the only 2 improving at the moment. The number 61 Ford Mustang and the number 68 McLaren. Ross Wiley in the 51 Porsche makes his way into Druids and doesn't look likely to be an improvement. This car will line up 2nd, of course, won't it, for race 1, thanks to Benji Hetherington's impressive effort. Going to be a bit further back for the 2nd race, though. Darren Turner is done. Indeed, the session is done because the checkered flag is out. Mo Ritson, the first driver to see that checkered flag in the number 26 Paddock Motorsport McLaren that he shares with Ashley Marshall. More and more coming through now. Ross Wiley goes through and improves his time, but stays in 8th place. There, Darren Turner out of the car. And that is the poise of a man who has had many a pole position over his career, not showing any excitement yet. He knows there are no points awarded on qualifying day. They all come on Bank Holiday Monday here at Oulton. Darren Turner, nothing much will faze a driver like Darren, who's been there and done it all, really, in GT racing and other disciplines too. And he looks good for pole here in the 2nd race of the weekend. 73 1,000ths of a second quicker than Will Burns, who's in the pit lane, and just under a 1/10 of a second in the end, quicker than this car. Sennan Fielding, personal best in the middle sector. That's interesting. 2/10 off pole though, so I don't think this is going to be an improvement upon 3rd place, but he's going to finish the lap anyway. And can he improve on 3rd? Oh, yes, he can. Onto the front row for Sennan Fielding. That was a really good middle sector then, because he got a good chunk of time back, and then a solid final sector puts the Audi onto second on the grid. It's not enough, though, to beat Darren Turner. The number 27 Newbridge Motorsport car will start on pole position for the second year in a row. It's Darren Turner, fastest in qualifying 2.
Darren, another day, another Aston, another pole position.
I wish it was that simple, but yeah, really pleased with that. I think, you know, for everyone at the team and the job Matt's been doing over the last day or so with the car, just getting up to speed with the new tyre, really, that's the main thing I think for everyone down the pit lane, is to understand the new tyre from Pirelli. It's great tyre, it's obviously a lot more performance, but it's just fine-tuning the cars around maximising that tyre for a qualifying run or a race distance. So big learning curve this weekend. But really,
is it much different?
It is, in terms of when you turn up with the setup that you had last year, and it doesn't quite do the same thing. So you just have to tweak it a little bit and try and get a bit of understanding of getting the car balance right again. So, but it's been really positive 2 days here so far. So really pleased with qualifying. That was nice. I enjoyed that lap.
Was it the perfect lap?
Never a perfect lap. I don't think I've ever had a perfect lap, but it was a nice lap. You know, there was a little bit more, maybe a tenth or two that I could have put together if I'd had a few more sets of tyres before. And it's always the same, isn't it? You get a new set of tyres in qualifying, low fuel. It's a bit of an unknown ride that you're about to do, and it's nice. That adventure's really good fun.
Excellent, Darren. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Darren Turner then gets pole position, as I said, for the second year in a row here at Oulton Park for Newbridge Motorsport. It's the Aston Martin on pole position. The race 1 pole-sitting Audi will start second for race 2. Exactly the same story as it was for Balfe Motorsport's Audi and GT3. Senan Fielding, second fastest in that session. The reigning champion Will Burns will start third alongside Jack Mitchell's Toyota. Seb Hopkins in the Team Parker Racing Porsche is next ahead of Josh Miller's Aston Martin. Chris Salkeld was a championship contender in GT4 last year. He will line up 7th on the grid alongside Ross Wiley's Porsche. Matt Cowley's Ford Mustang is 9th, and Freddie Tomlinson just manages to hang on to that 10th spot by the end of the session. Mo Ritson's Paddock Motorsport McLaren is 11th. Bobby Trundley in another McLaren for Team Brit is 12th quickest. And the second of the Pro-Ams with Inspire Racing's Ecris M4, again a little off the pace, so I think they may be fighting a couple of mechanical gremlins in that car. Hopefully they can get them sorted before the 2 races on Monday. So Aston Martin looking strong then in GT4, but it's a very, very competitive pair of qualifying sessions for both GT3 and GT4. Will Burns very much a part of that, and he's down there with Addison.
Will, we were getting all excited there because we thought you were going to be on for pole, and you seemed to bail from the session a bit early. Was that the plan?
Well, to be honest, my tyres were gone then, so on the final lap that I came in, I was about half a second down, so there's no point pounding around on the tyres. But just as I got out of the car, I just got pipped by Senan Fielding, so he always does that, so yeah, well done to him. But I think we're really pleased with that, though. I thought we were struggling a little bit during the morning sessions, so to come away with that lap time, I'm really pleased.
Does the car feel very different on this new tyre?
Yeah, it does. So it's given us a lot more front end, and it's just it gives a bit of work for the data engineers just to get their heads around the tyres. So obviously, it being a new year and new tyres, it's obviously trying to get an advantage at the best ways we can. But I'm really pleased with that result.
Excellent. Let's see what Monday brings. Will, thanks very much.
So Will Burns then will line up third for that second race of the day in GT4. But for Balfe Motorsport, Ram Racing, Stella Motorsport and Newbridge Motorsport, a successful afternoon's work here. They are your 4 respective pole position sitters for the 2 races on Monday. Both of them 60-minute races. The first of those races due to start at 11:20 in the morning. So be sure to tune in to what is set to be a brilliant season opener. Well, already that season opener has begun in pretty entertaining fashion with the qualifying sessions here underneath the Easter bank holiday sunshine. The spectators that are gathered around the circuit have certainly got their money's worth today. So before they go home and before we leave you in peace, let's remind you of everything that happened over the last hour. The first qualifying session of the season in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship got underway with the AM drivers in the GT3 category. The early pace being set by Ram Racing, but it didn't take long before the Balfe Motorsport car of Sean Balfe went underneath didn't quite go underneath the existing lap record, but set a really quick pace, good enough for pole position. There was a spin for Lewis Williamson in the number 4 Mercedes, whilst Redline Racing's Lamborghini looked pretty on the pace as well. For Stella Motorsport, though, a brilliant effort. Pole position in race 1, followed by second for race 2. In GT4, more lap records fell. It was the number 27 car that was set the lap record in Session 2, but in Session 1, another Audi on the top. Stellar Motorsport pole for Race 1 in GT4, with the Race 2 pole position going to Newbridge Motorsport.